In this video, we'll see how to create a baseboard and parapet coping using the wall sweep tool. And we'll also see how to import a profile family to create a new sweep type. The sweep tool is used to create components that are hosted along the length of a wall. A profile family is used to define the 2D cross section, which is then extruded with the sweep tool. The sweep tool is useful for creating components such as a baseboard, cornice or coping stone. I have the exercise file, wall sweeps, open, and looking at the top of the building, we will create a coping around the parapet of the external walls. We'll use the wall sweep tool to do this, but first we must load a profile family into the project to define the cross section shape of the coping. So from the Insert ribbon tab, on the Load from Library panel, we'll choose Load Autodesk Family. And this will open a browser for the Autodesk sample content based on the cloud. First, we just need to check that our locale region is set to United States Imperial. And now we can browse to the profile group on the left hand side here. And then we'll choose the wall subgroup. And then in the results shown on the right hand side here, we'll choose the parapet cap precast and then click load to load that into our project. So now that we have that loaded, we'll use the sweep tool. So from the architecture ribbon tab on the build panel, from beneath the wall tool, we'll choose the wall sweep tool. And now looking in the type selector, we can see we have a baseboard and cornice type. So we need to create the coping type. So to do this, click Edit Type to access the type parameters of the cornice, and then we'll click Duplicate to create a copy. We'll assign the name Parapet Coping, and then click OK to save this. Now looking at the type parameters, we have a parameter for profile. It's set to default, so we'll click this, and then from the drop down list we can see the parapet cap precast profile that we loaded, and we'll choose the 20-inch wide version. We also need to assign a material, so just beneath we'll click by category next to the material parameter, and then we'll open the material browser from the ellipsis button that appears. Use the search box at the top to search for stone materials. And from the list of search results we'll click travertine and then click OK to assign this material onto our parapet coping suite. So now we can click OK to the type properties, and that's our sweep type created. So zooming into the walls, we can see it previewed as we move our cursor around. We'll click the top of the wall here, and then we'll click the side wall that joins in, and we can see that starting to be placed. So now we just need to select the remainder of the walls. And we need to make sure that we select the external face of these walls so that the parapet coping has a consistent orientation around the external walls that we're selecting. So once we've selected all of those walls, we'll click Modify to finish creating it, and then we can see the parapet coping created, and zooming in here we can see a nice mitered joint at the corners. So now I'll select the sweep, and looking at its properties, we can see we have an offset from wall, and we use this to adjust its position relative to the wall, so I'll change this to be just 1 inch. And then beneath that we have the level and offset from level, and I happen to know that there's a parapet level in this model, so we'll change it from site. So let's select site, and then from the list of levels we'll scroll down and choose the parapet level. Whilst we're there, we don't need it to be offset, so we'll change that to 0. So that the sweep then sits at the parapet level, and then should that level change at all in the project, our sweep will change with it. So that finishes creating the coping for the top of the wall. And now we need to add a baseboard into the reception area on floor 2. So to do this, we'll open up the floor plan floor 2. And the reception area that we need to work on is the one here in the middle of the plan, number 227. Now the sweep tool won't work in a plan view, so we need to create a 3D view, and to do this we need to select the room. So Hovering just near the room tag, we can see the room highlighted, and then we'll click to select that. And then from the Modify Rooms ribbon tab, on the View panel, we'll choose the Selection Box tool. And this will then take us to a 3D view, and the section box will be set around the boundary of the room. Now we just need to adjust it so we can see in. So I'll select the section box, and using the controls on the top, we'll just drag these down so we can see into the reception. And whilst we're here, we'll use the controls on the front to drag this forward a bit so we can see a bit more of the context around the reception. So now we have that section box created, we can see the area of the reception that we need to add the baseboard into. So to do this, we'll use the sweep tool again. So from the Architecture ribbon tab, on the Build panel, under the Wall tool, we'll choose Wall Sweep. And then from the Type selector, we can choose the baseboard type. And now we can click some of the walls in the reception area to start placing the baseboard. So we'll choose this one and then the two side walls. And then we'll click on Modify to stop it just there. And we can see the sweep that's been created. We can see it stopping either side of the doors. And on the side walls, we can see that it's actually extending through into the offices. And this is because the wall that makes the edge of the reception also continues through to the office as well. So to fix this, we need to select the sweep. And we can see that it has quite a number of drag control points at the ends of the sweeps. And looking at the wall going through the office here, we can see that we have a drag control point. So let's drag that back and snap it to the corner of the reception wall. And then if we do that to the opposite side of the reception, we can see that we have our baseboard just in the reception area and not going through to the offices. And if we zoom in here, we can see we have a nice mitered joint in that corner too. So now we need to set the height of the baseboard. And if I select it, looking at its instance properties, we can see that it's associated to level 2, which is correct. So to get the correct location, we'll use the Align tool this time. So from the Modify ribbon, on the Modify panel, we'll click Align. And then we'll select the top of the floor slab for the reference. And then we'll get the underside of the baseboard so that it aligns on to the top of that floor slab. So now zooming into one of the doors here, we can see that the baseboard actually projects through the trim on the door. And that's not really how we want it. We'd rather it stopped at the back edge of the trim. And I know that trim is actually 3 inches wide, so we'll select the sweep again. And then we'll click Edit Type from the Properties palette to access its type properties. And then here we have the parameter Default Setback. So we'll set this to be 3 inches. And we'll click OK to save those changes. And now the sweep will be 3 inches back from the edge of the door, which will line up with the back edge of the trim. So now we just need to add in the remaining walls to this sweep. So whilst it's still selected, on the Modify Wall Sweeps ribbon tab, we'll choose Add Remove Walls. And now we can just click on the walls around the reception area that don't have the baseboard, and it will be added to those walls with the same settings of the sweep that we've already created. So then we'll choose Modify, and then that will finish creating the baseboard around our reception area.